So I will record the beginning of this discussion, and after Robby describes his experience, then we will stop recording so that people feel free to share their experiences. So I'm honored to introduce Robby Klaber, who is a portfolio manager at Parnassus Investments. And he was selected to the Forbes 30 Under 30 in finance as one of the top rising stars in the industry. Prior to that, he worked at Neuberger Berman. He graduated Phi Beta Kappa and Magna Cum Laude from Brown University, where he received the Joslin Award for Outstanding Leadership. And we're, let me just admit these people. And we're very honored that Robby serves on our board of directors. So he will go ahead and explain his experience, and then we'll open up to questions. And after that, at that point, we won't be recording. So.
Well, thanks, Mary. It's so nice to be here, and appreciate you inviting me to speak about my experience. The one thing that you didn't mention about my background is I actually started my career at Lehman Brothers on the day of their bankruptcy.
Oh.
So anyone who remembers the financial meltdown in 2008, my day one was September 15th, 2008. And I bring that up just because, certainly a thread in my life is that, life is unpredictable.
Charlie, come eat.
Yeah.
I think if everyone mutes, that might be helpful. But life is unpredictable. I never would have expected joining a, nearly 150-year-old company and joining on the day of their bankruptcy. And I never would have expected that at 29 years old, I'd, be clinically dead for 2 minutes and 32 seconds. And so, my story is I've always been active. I rode a bicycle from Providence, Rhode Island to Seattle, Washington, for Habitat for Humanity. And so we biked for 6 days, helped build a house on the 7th day. Biking on average about 75 miles a day. I ran the Miami Marathon in 2012, San Francisco Half Marathon in 2013. And anyone who's running like a half marathon or marathon knows that just with the training, you're typically running 14, 15, 16, 17 miles just as preparation. And so, I say that just to kind of express the fact that I've always been active. And so, in October 12th, 2014, at 29 years old, I was really excited to run in my hometown race. I'm from outside Chicago, and I ran in the Chicago Marathon. It was like picture perfect day, not a cloud in the sky, and ran my fastest ever 10K. And I was feeling really good, going at a nice pace. And then at mile 7, I felt like I had been punched in the gut. I felt a little lightheaded, so I walked. I remember a police officer saying, "Hey, you okay?" I said, "Yeah, just catching my breath." Dizziness went away, and I resumed running, feeling good again. Mile 8, went past mile 8, felt great. And then I remember seeing the mile 9 marker, probably 20, 25 yards in front of me. And that's where I collapsed. And so this whole story is, in my mind, just an incredible miracle. Michael, we were talking before, where it happened. So the fact that it could have happened at any point, when I was riding a bike, when I was training, it happened during a marathon, which is, arguably one of the best places for something like this to happen, where paramedics are like every half mile. And two people, Hannah and Mackenzie, saw me fall. They were running right behind me. They saw me fall and immediately stopped running their own race, and they started CPR on a complete stranger. And it's a miracle that they did an incredible job with the compressions. I didn't suffer from any broken ribs, fractured ribs, which is incredible. And so they were giving intense compressions. A few moments later, a priest from one of the large churches in Chicago, he ran by the scene, and then he ran another block, and then he did a U-turn, and he said, "I got to see what's going on back there." So he does a U-turn, goes back to the scene, and he says to the cop, at this point there was a big crowd kind of circle, around me, and he said to the cop, he's like, "I'm a priest, like, how can I help?" And the cop said, "You should pray for this guy, he needs a lot of help." And Mackenzie, Hannah, Father Tom Hurley, I've kept in close contact with each of them uh, throughout the year, but especially on October 12th of each year, I reach out to them, give them a call to express my gratitude for everything that they've done. And Father Tom has been out to my house in San Francisco, and I remember him telling me, like, when he saw me on the ground in the street, my lips were blue, and so it's amazing what it really puts faith back in humanity. The fact that complete strangers would go out of their way to do the compressions, um, you know, pray for me, a complete stranger, during the mass for his church. And so, anyways, that's all going on. A couple minutes later, first responders from Engine 55 in Chicago, they came, as well as the EMT, and they shocked me with the defibrillator. Um, and I remember, so at this point, I was in the ambulance, and one of the EMTs said, "Robert, do you know where you are? We just saved your life." Said it a second time, said it a third time, "Robert, do you know where you are? We just saved your life." And literally the first thing out of my mouth was, "You got to let me finish this race. I'm so close." And I literally, obviously, had no idea where I was. So again, they said, "We just saved your life. Do you know where you are?" And that's when it hit me. And I looked around and I realized that I was in an ambulance. And no more than 10 seconds later, the doors to the ambulance opened up. And I knew that it was a miracle that I was still alive. I still hadn't really comprehended exactly what had happened or how I got there, but I knew that I was in an ambulance, and just like the urgency around me when I got into the hospital, I felt tremendous gratitude that I was alive. And as I later found out, it had been 2 minutes and 32 seconds without a pulse. Um, and so, I think what's most um, gratifying in all this is just kind of being able to keep in touch with all the people who helped. I mentioned three earlier, but also when I've been back to Chicago, seeing the first responders. And one of the organizations I'm involved in is called Ignite the Spirit, and they help firefighters in their times of need. And so that's a wonderful organization, and I've been in touch with a number of the first responders who helped me out. And 6 months after, so was in a hospital in Chicago. I left there a couple days later without a diagnosis. Initially they wanted to implant a defibrillator, but there was no good explanation for why this happened or whether, what the diagnosis was. And so I left Chicago, came back to San Francisco, and really started the due diligence process, meeting with experts in the field, got, opinions at Texas Heart, Cleveland Clinic, UCSF, and Stanford. Ultimately having surgery about 6 months after the marathon, to correct a congenital anomaly, anomalous origin of a right coronary artery. And so had the surgery, and that was in April of 2015. And so fortunately have felt well since then. And the fact that haven't, no neurological issue, no mental, it's just enormous miracle that this all played out as it did. But really a reminder that life is fragile, and just to really appreciate and enjoy each moment, because these things happen. You never expect them, but it's given me a much greater perspective for life and kind of the richness of it. And so despite it being like a very intense time, that period from October to, April of 2015, I actually look back at it with like a lot of gratitude and a lot of, in a sense, joy, the fact that it has given me so much perspective. So maybe I'll pause there, and I don't know, Josh, if you want to open it up or.
Yeah, I think so. I appreciate you sharing your story, and we had planned to sort of record some of the initial parts of it to kind of get it out there. But I think it would be a good opportunity where, Mary, we can stop the recording and we can just open the floor for sort of questions.